If your plants aren't thriving, pH could be the issue. Today, I will reveal the secrets to maintaining perfect pH for healthier cannabis plants. All right, but before we do, today's video is brought to you by Real Growers Recharge. If you want stronger, healthier plants, if you want bigger roots for better fruits, you gotta check out Real Growers Recharge. It's like an instant compost tea that holds more nutrients at your root zone, breaks those nutrients down, and makes them more plant available, getting more of your nutrients into your plants. Find out more about Recharge over at realgrowers.com. And while you're there, use coupon code Scotty420 to get 20% off your first order. Now let's get back to the show. All right, Hassie, you ready to talk a little pH?
I do, and I know that you don't worry about pH too much, and we'll kind of give the reason why at the end of the video.
Yes.
But I do know that pH is important, so help me understand, why do I even need to worry about pH?
pH, the potential of hydrogen, just in case you ever get quizzed on it. But it's how acidic or basic, I guess, what your pH is, high or low. The lower it is, the more acidic. The higher it is, the more alkaline. And yeah, you want it in this range. There's this range, right? I'd say between 6 and 7 is really the ideal range. And can you pull up that? I reference it frequently.
I got it already pulled up because I knew you were going there.
But just look at it. I mean, it's a good explanation. Look at all those nutrients and just look at the line going down between 6 and 7. That's where the maximum absorption is of all the nutrients. So that's where I want my plants to be.
So this is in these particular range where it's yellow. This is where the most amount of all the nutrients are going to be absorbed.
Yep.
If you go one way or the other, you're going to start missing out on absorbing certain nutrients.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. So I want to keep my pH between 6 and 7, make sure my plants get the most of what I'm feeding them.
Yep.
And let's talk a little bit about how I can monitor or I guess adjust it if I see something going wrong.
Yeah, there's a couple ways. There's an expensive way, which is buying a pH meter. They're a couple $100. You have to calibrate them. I'm already poo-pooing on them because, man, they're just a pain. Like I said, they're a couple $100. They're always going out of calibration. You have to leave the probes in calibration fluid. It's just a pain in the butt. I like just a simple, I think I put a link on there for the little simple $12 General Hydroponics test drops.
All right, yeah, so I've got these ones pulled up on Amazon right now. It looks like you just add some water to it. And
I've used these 99% of the time. You add a little bit of water to them, and then just a few drops of the solution. Doesn't matter whether you put 3 drops or 5 drops in. You're just looking for that color, and then you just compare the color. It's pretty easy. It really is. I'm just saying that if you are trying to check pH, it doesn't have to be a multi-$100 thing. $12, you can get into it.
This cup that I'm looking at reminds me of when I used to have to, on probation, go to urine analysis test.
You got good aim because it's about that big. Hey, I do have one more important thing about pH, and that is it can be very deceptive if you test the pH of your nutrient solution and then assume that when you put that into your root system, when you water that into your root system, that it is going to be that same pH. There are all sorts of interactions that are going to happen in that root system that are going to change the pH substantially. So that's a big deal.
So I actually had a question about that.
Sure.
If I'm testing with that little cup and the drops, that's just testing my pH of my water, right?
But it could be your input water or it could be the output water. So what I like to do is just give it a little bit of extra water so it's just past saturation. So it starts dripping out the bottom of the drain holes. That's the water that I'll collect. Or if you just have it to where it's sitting there and after a little while you tilt the container and get the water that's in the bottom of those drain holes, or just that's representative of what's sitting in that soil. Then take a pH test of that. It's going to give you a much more accurate reading than what you're putting into it. Try to measure the output.
And that's because the water that we're putting in might have one pH, but adding the nutrients is going to change the pH levels. And that's why you want to test the runoff water. That'll give you an accurate understanding of what the pH inside the soil
Yep.
is.
Yeah, your nutrients are pretty much always going to lower your pH levels.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you said something earlier about a slurry test. What's that?
Yeah, slurry test is if you can't lift a container, if it's in the ground, or if 100-gallon containers or something like that, you can dig a little bit of the soil up. You put I think it's distilled water, you mix it with, you shake it up a little bit, and then you test, you let the everything settle, all the particles settle, and then you test that pH. So
The pH of the water?
Of the water sitting on top, yeah.
Gotcha.
So it is another way to do it, but the important point is that the pH in your soil is going to be different than the pH in your nutrient solution. So the runoff is going to give you a much more valuable measurement.
Gotcha. Okay. And so if I'm looking at my pH from the water, however I'm testing it.
Sure.
And I'm looking and it's a little bit hot or it's a little bit above what I want or a little bit below what I want. Is there ways to fix it?
Yeah. I mean, very easy. Use pH up and pH down. And so it's just, pH down is some kind of acidic, and pH up is real alkaline, and you put them in. I will say, you'd put those in your nutrient solution, put them in after you put your nutrients in, because the nutrients are going to change your pH. They're going to lower your pH. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually real important. It's also real important not to try to change the pH of completely pure water. Completely pure, like reverse osmosis water or distilled water. It has nothing in there. So there's nothing for the ions to bond with, and it's just huge pH swings. You'll go crazy trying to do it.
Okay. And so you mentioned, let's talk about some of the culprits that cause pH imbalance. You already mentioned nutrients.
Yeah.
You said that nutrients are usually kind of acidic, so they'll drop the pH a little bit.
Yep. Cations. Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Is there, I guess, quality of nutrient? Does that matter?
I mean, there are, yeah. I mean, there's lines out there, some of the real expensive, fancy boutique lines say pH buffered and all that kind of stuff. I don't know the specific technology that each one of them are using. Can of cocoa, for years I was using it. It was buffered.
The A and the B, or the cocoa itself?
The A and the B. And it was just super simple. Didn't have lots of pH swings. So if you're having lots of pH swings with your nutrient, consider maybe a more simple nutrient, or a nutrient that doesn't have those problems. There's plenty of them that are pH balanced.
Right. And I like going with the simpler solutions, because if I'm mixing 8 different bottles, I don't know which one is throwing it off. But if I'm just using an A and B, or if I'm using something like Grodox, it's real easy to keep that consistent pH level.
It's important, man. Consistency, because it will balance out, especially if you're using something like Recharge. Those microbes will balance out the pH in the media. Mm-hmm. You can't go nuts. You can't, you can't pour acid on them,
Well, I think the microbes too is kind of like a game changer for me, because they get in there and they adjust the pH at the root zone, which is really what's important. We've talked about soil pH and water pH.
Yeah.
But at the root zone is really where we're concerned.
That's where the microbes really shine. They're able to regulate the pH at the root zone.
Don't they regulate their own pH?
Yeah, but they're also able to byproduct that they, spit out, or they're not really spitting it out. They're more pooping it out. They exude. It is acidic. I mean, that's where those humic acids come from. Mm-hmm. And then after a while, as the acids break down, the carbons can combine and make a bicarbonate, which is really alkaline.
So if your pH at the root zone is too much one way, they create carbonic acid.
Sure.
And if it's too far the other way, they create what was that?
Yeah, bicarbonate. And it's just the carbons that are left over after the hydrogen pops off there, and it makes sense. All right.
Okay.
Just Google it. All right.
Science class here.
I'm not a chemist by any means, but I tell you, when I do think about this stuff, when I think about H2O having an oxygen and a hydrogen, and the microbe needing the oxygen, so it rips it off. Then that hydrogen, what do we say? A pH is the potential of hydrogen. So that ends up changing the pH, but then the carbon joins together and makes something alkaline, a bicarbonate. So it's Seems really complicated. It's not really, though, man.
Well, it's nature. Nature figures out how to make things work, and adding those microbes in, nature knows how to regulate the pH levels, and it's something that we should be doing as growers.
But if I say to you that a bicarbonate is really high in pH, and that if you take two CO2s and you grab the O2 off there, you're left with two C's, which are carbons. Bi is 2. They go together and make it's not that complicated. Sorry, man. All right.
Okay.
I see. Can I just add one more thing before we're out of here?
Yeah, what's up, man?
Dolomite lime. Cheap as all anything, man. And 1 tablespoon per gallon of my media. It's been a great pH buffer for me. Between that and the recharge, man, it's on autopilot. My grow's on autopilot, man.
So pH is important.
Absolutely.
There's ways to measure it. There's ways to adjust it, but you're saying the combination of soil microbes and dolomitic
lime, just having the right amount of, when I even buy my soil for the nursery down in Florida, I always get a little bit of dolomitic lime in there. It's just a part of when you're building a soil.
And then that makes it a lot easier to keep your pH in check.
You do it because it's a great pH buffer. It's also a great calcium and magnesium source, but it's a great pH buffer. Hey, but that is just my 2 cents. I really don't worry about pH too much. So you tell me, how do you keep your pH in check? Let me know in the comments. And if you dug this video, please hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, share this video with another grower you know, and check out the other couple videos YouTube's recommending. I know you'll dig them.